Well, hello, everybody. A very happy Saturday to you all. You know, it's been a couple of weeks, but I believe my voice is finally returning in strength. We'll hope so. That is the hope, and our goal for this evening is to actually have a storytime stream like our storytime streams should be. Unfortunately, over the last couple of live streams, I made it through, I think, 30 minutes and then 20 minutes. So it should be better tonight. And thank you so much for being here with me as we will continue our read of The Sentinel Project by Soren K. Blackwood. You can, of course, check out this book on your own. You can pick it up through Amazon if you want. All of the previous chapters that I have read are up on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/at Sir Arminius for your for your listening pleasure. For your listening pleasure. Over the last little bit, we have seen that the Chinese threatened to come in and take over the dig site. And then we had an unknown government entity basically come in and take over the dig site. And so Kaylin and Inanna and Dr. Ben Carter ran away. They got themselves out of the area and have moved their way to Baghdad. And that is where we will pick up our read and our stream tonight. So, as always, everyone, sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy as we dive into another evening of storytime fun, storytime goodness with you, me, and Mr. McGee, as we will once again read The Sentinel Project. Soren K. Blackwood. As always, I record these, so I will interact with you guys between chapters if you whether you are on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, or X, wherever you happen to be watching from. Please feel free to throw in your comments, and I am happy to respond in between chapters because I will record as we read. But now let's go ahead and get ourselves started as we jump in to Chapter 17, The Baghdad Connection. The lobby of their Baghdad hotel was a swirl of quiet efficiency. A man with kind, intelligent eyes and a neatly trimmed gray beard rose from a leather armchair as they approached. It was Dr. Fadel Massoud. He greeted Kalen with a warm, professional handshake before turning his curious gaze to the others. Dr. Carter, Dr. Ferris, Kalen said, making the introductions. This is our trusted colleague, Dr. Massoud. A pleasure. English perfect, his eyes analytical. Kalen, your message was intriguing. Shall we speak somewhere more private? He led them not to a conference room, but to a quiet, book-lined study reserved for hotel guests. The air was cool and smelled of old leather and tea. Once the door was closed, the professional warmth in Massoud's demeanor was replaced by a cautious gravity. Kalen, you have always been a reputable, if unconventional, benefactor of our work, he began, gesturing for them to sit. But the symbol you sent me, it is not from any published text. It is from a collection of sealed tablets recovered from a site that, officially, does not exist. Before I show you anything that could end my career, you must tell me how you came by it. This was the test. Ben took the lead. Dr. Massoud, In my research, I've come to believe that a technologically advanced culture existed in pre dynastic Egypt. I believe they suffered a great schism, a civil war, and that a faction of their engineers fled east to Mesopotamia. Masood's expression unreadable. A common enough fringe theory, Dr. Carter. Many have speculated. But did their theories mention that the rebels stole three of the four pillars of the sky god? Inanna interjected, her voice calm and steady, and that the fourth, the largest and most complex, was left behind in what the Egyptians would later call the Grand Gallery because it was too damaged to be moved. Masood froze. His eyes darted from Inanna to Ben. The color drained from his face. That is impossible. The reference to the fourth pillar is on a single untranslated fragment. No one has seen it. We have, Ben said simply. The air in the room grew thick with the weight of unspoken history. Masood stared at them for a long, silent moment. The mind of a scientist warring with the reality of the impossible. Finally, he gave a single, slow nod. What I am about to do, he said, his voice barely a whisper, is an act of faith. Come with me. The ride out of Baghdad was tense. They drove in a nondescript van, leaving the city behind for the barren, sun-baked plains. The site is designated as a simple Parthian-era ruin, Masood explained as he drove. A cover story to keep it off the official maps. For 10 years, we have studied the tablets, the myths of a tower that angered the gods. We believed we were studying a legend. He glanced at Ben in the rearview mirror. It seems we were excavating a crime scene. He pulled the van to a stop beside a magnificent crumbling ziggurat that rose from the desert floor like a broken tooth. He led them past the official cordoned-off excavation area to a small reinforced bunker in the sand. We found them when the tablets said the heart of the tower would be, he said, scanning his pass. A heavy door hissed open, revealing a ladder descending into a deep, climate-controlled shaft. The setup was eerily familiar to the one Geodynamics had built in the desert. Ben shot a wry look at Galen. Geodynamics? We don't own everything, Ben, she replied, with a small smile, gesturing for him to go first. At the bottom, resting on pedestals under soft museum-quality lights, were the three machines. They were made of a highly polished, dark material that seemed to drink the light, their surfaces humming with a silent, dormant power. They were the pyramid activators. Ben rushed forward, his heart pounding like a relentless drum, a powerful feeling of reunion sweeping over him like a massive wave. They're here, he breathed out, his voice quivering with awe and urgency. These machines aren't just 4,000 or 10,000 years old. They're over 50,000 years old and lying dormant. I need the stone. Kaelin, with her trademark wicked smile, stepped between him and Masood. With her back to the old archaeologist, she slowly pulled her hand from her duffel bag. Sticking out of her fist was the unmistakable, smooth curve of the resonator stone. Ta-da! She whispered. Ben stared, his mind struggling to comprehend. He remembered the box of rocks, the casual toss, the despair of losing the key. A sharp laugh, mixed with relief and disbelief, escaped his lips. Kaelin, you're a miracle. He took the stone from her, its familiar coolness a grounding presence in his hand. There are no secrets down here, he said, who was looking at the stone with wide, uncomprehending eyes. Let's see what happens. He approached the machines, stone in hand. Step, nothing. Why isn't it working? He asked, his voice laced with frustration. They should recognize the marker. Ben, Masood called out, his voice hushed with excitement. He gestured to a corner where a collection of recently unearthed cuneiform tablets were carefully laid out. We found these tablets arranged around the machines. We assumed they were devotional, but given what you've told me, could they be the operating manuals? Inanna gasped, rushing to the tablets. My God, Ben, look, the hymn to Inanna. Her face lit up. She was the goddess of awakening, of transformation. Her journey to the underworld. It's a mythic echo of ego death and rebirth. It describes the seven powers, the chakras. And this, she said, moving to the next tablet, her voice trembling. The hymn to Anil. You brought our order out of chaos. You planted the seeds of knowledge. Ben, it's a description of the energy sheet from the Giza calibration. Her hand flew to a third tablet. And Aniki, the god of wisdom, whose temple was built over a subterranean source of knowledge, the Absu. The quantum field, Ben finished for her. The source of all information. Ben, this one. Inanna lifted a final tablet, her eyes wide. It talks about the me, divine blueprints of reality kept in Aniki's temple. They weren't decrees, they were data cores. She looked from the tablet to the stone in Ben's hand. The stone. It's a fragment of the me, the last data core. Ben stared at the tablets, his head spinning. It was all here, the entire history, the entire science, cloaked in the beautiful poetry of myth. We have it, he whispered, but it's just dogma. We need to turn it back into technology. Then this is the answer you're looking for, Inanna said, pointing to a final line on another tablet. From the hymn to the temple of Nippur. It calls the temple the house that sings with the voice of heaven, where the words of the gods become flesh. Ben froze. He looked at the resonator machines. He looked at the tablets containing the songs of the gods. He looked at the stone in his hand. That's it, he said, a slow, brilliant smile spreading across his face. It's not about power, it's about sound. They're not just resonators, they're amplifiers. Right. So he says, Ben, drinking the most wintry of teas, peach. 'Cause why not, right? All right, let's move into our next one. Chapter 18 The Unlikely Alliance. The lobby of their Baghdad hotel was an island of quiet luxury in the dead of night. Ben, Kalen, and Anana sat around a low table, the array of empty coffee cups and the satellite images spread before them, telling the story of the hours they had spent debating. It's the only path forward, Ben said, his voice low but firm. He traced a line on a map of the Giza Plateau. We have the stone from Lyra's time. We have the three resonator machines from the dig here, but they're just the engine and the key. We're missing the chassis. We're missing the main apparatus. The pyramids, Inanna whispered, the word hanging in the air with impossible weight. Pyramids? Kaelin exclaimed, her composure finally fraying. Ben, that's precisely where one might expect to find me, it seems. The voice was warm, familiar, and laced with a wry academic wit. Ben looked up, his heart stopping for a moment. Standing at the edge of their table, dressed in a sharp, if slightly travel rumpled, three-piece suit, was Dr. Alistair Finch. Alistair! Ben shot up from his chair, his exhaustion forgotten. What in God's name are you doing here? Benny, my boy, Alistair said, his face breaking into a fatherly smile as they embraced. How could I let my most notorious student flush his entire career down the drain without at least being present to take notes? He turned his charming smile to the two women. Dr. Kaelin Vance, Dr. Inanna Ferris, I presume. A pleasure. Dr. Finch, Kaelin said, recovering quickly, her voice sharp with suspicion. You were supposed to meet my team at the dig site in the desert. How did you find us here? What? Ben looked back and forth between them, confused. Al- She called me, Ben. Miss Vance explained the situation, very vaguely, I might add, and she told me that you expressly forbade her from mentioning your name. He chuckled again. That, of course, is what made me come. If you're involved, but don't want your name mentioned, it must be something truly spectacular. Ben was speechless, a grin spreading across his face. Alistair, you have no idea. This is literally out of this world. But that doesn't answer my question, Kaelin pressed, her eyes narrowed. How did you know we were at this hotel? Ah, yes, Alistair said, tapping his head. I quite forgot. I did go to your old dig site. Charming fellows with guns wouldn't let me in. I explained that I was invited. To cut a rather long and tedious story short, a rather imposing chap named Major Vanguard came out, terribly serious, asked me more questions than my dissertation defense committee. I simply told him I needed to speak with Miss Vance, and I would be on my way. Alistair paused for dramatic effect. He told me I would find you at this hotel. A chill went through the room. Keelan's face went pale, but her eyes hardened with a familiar cold fury. He let you through, she whispered, confirming her worst fears. He knows we're here. He's tracking us. She stood abruptly and strode to the window, looking out at the city lights without seeing them. A word, Doctor, she said, her back still to the room. Ben followed, joining her at the window. You think this is a scientific race against a rival consortium, she began, her voice a low, dangerous whisper. It never was. You need to understand who and what you are up against. Vanguard is not just a soldier following orders. He's a key player in a splinter group that has known about this for over 50 years. They have their own data, their own artifacts from a different crash. Ben stared at her, stunned into silence. This was the vulnerability he'd never seen. Not of weakness, but of a commander laying the brutal truth of the battlefield bare. Geodynamics wasn't created to dig up lost history, Ben, she confessed, finally turning to face him, her eyes burning with intensity. It was founded for one purpose: to find the Sentinel network before they do. This has never been a mission of discovery. It's a containment mission. And right now, she admitted, the words tasting like ash, we are losing. He's letting us do the legwork because he thinks he can take the prize at the finish line. Ben returned to the table, the weight of Kalen's confession settling over him. He looked at his old mentor. Alistair, he began, you're going to want to sit down for this. For the next hour, they laid it all out: the visions, the fracture, the stolen machines, Vanguard's shadow war. Alistair listened, his initial skepticism melting away into a state of profound, shell shocked awe. So, the myths, the gods, they were all just echoes of a forgotten science? He finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. The most important science in human history, Ben confirmed. And Vanguard wants to turn it into a weapon. We have to beat him to it. We have to reactivate the main apparatus at Giza. Ben, that's madness, Alistair protested. This isn't a secret dig in a remote desert anymore. This is the Giza Plateau. This is the most famous, most monitored place on Earth. He's right, Inanna added, her voice laced with pragmatic concern. The logistical and political hurdles are insurmountable. We'd be caught before we even unloaded the equipment. The daunting, frightening reality of their predicament loomed like a dense fog, hiding the way forward. Kalen, who had remained quiet until now, finally broke the silence, her voice slicing through the uncertainty with authoritative clarity. They're both right, she said, looking at Ben. It is impossible. We can't plan an operation of this magnitude from a hotel room in Baghdad. We're flying blind. She paused, her eyes glinting with a dangerous, decisive light. So we stop flying blind. We need to be on the ground. We need local assets, technical support, and a deep understanding of the terrain. We need to get closer. She looked at each of them in turn, her decision made. Pack your bags, she commanded. We're going to Cairo. Oh no, not Cairo. They just got Alistair with them. Whatever shall they do? They will have to spend their time in Cairo. Moving from Baghdad to Cairo. Oh no, oh no, oh yeah. Hope you guys are enjoying. Let's dive right in to our next chapter, shall we? Excuse the coughing. Still getting over a little bit of the cold. But by this point in my last couple of streams, I was already losing my voice, so we're in good shape. Let's start into Chapter 19, The Plan. The Keeper of Whispers. The private plane banked over the sprawling, hazy expanse of Cairo. As they began their descent, Kalen, who had been quietly on the tablet, finally looked up. I managed to get Masood full authority over the machines in Baghdad, she announced. The assets are secure for now, but Vanguard won't be idle for long. They landed not at the international airport, but at a private military airstrip. A single black car was waiting. Where are we headed? Ben asked. To meet a friend, Kalen replied cryptically. An associate of the corporation who looks at our mission from the inside out. They left the airfield and merged into the bustling flow of Cairo as the city came to life. The driver maneuvers through the commotion with a relaxed yet almost disdainful expertise, dodging donkey carts, delivery vans, and taxis packed so tightly that Ben can see the perspiration on the drivers' necks. Cairo feels like a living entity, a city holding itself together with countless hands, and for a moment, he is captivated by the sheer wonder of being carried along in its vibrant pulse. The car stopped not at a lavish hotel, but before an ancient, unassuming wooden door in the heart of Old Cairo. They were led into a quiet, cool courtyard and then into a magnificent library. The room was a circle, walled from floor to ceiling with ancient scrolls and leather bound books, the air thick with the scent of old paper and myrrh. An old man with a peaceful face and eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 years of secrets rose to greet them. Kalen, he said, his voice a soft, gentle hum, and these must be the travelers. Ben, Inanna, Alistair, Kalen. This is Alistair, ever the pragmatist, spoke first. Miss Vance, with all due respect, we are in a race against a global military power. What are we doing here? We are here, Dai Shin answered for her, his eyes twinkling. To remember. He gestured to a low table where tea was waiting. Dr. Finch, you are a man of science. You believe a fact is only a fact when it can be repeatedly observed. Tell me, have we ever truly invented anything? Or have we merely observed a law that was already in place and given our observation a name? Alistair's eyes widened. Ben, that's the very thing you were. It is the truth that underpins everything, Daishin said, turning his calm gaze to Inanna. You, my dear, study the symbols of the past. Show me one. Inanna, intrigued, pulled up an image of the Eye of Horus on her laptop. Ah, Ajna, the third eye, the pineal gland, Daishin said with a soft smile. The biological transceiver for signals from the quantum field. Inanna gasped. How could you possibly know that? Some truths can be discovered by looking through a microscope, Daishin said, and some can be discovered by looking. Path is different. The destination is the same. He then looked at Ben. You have a different path altogether. You have walked through the memory of the machine. This was their opening. The four of them, sweet mint tea, dove into the greatest debriefing in human history. Ben described the Sentinel. Inanna connected the Egyptian gods to vibrational codes. Atom as the self-creating entity. Thoth as the data stream. Alistair grappled with the observer effect as a tool of creation. But what about the ego? Inanna asked, pulling up an image of Hathor. If all this is science, what is love, beauty, desire? Does the ego have a quantum code? It is the noise that prevents us from hearing the music, Daishin answered simply. The most beautiful and most dangerous distortion in the field. Ben, feeling emboldened, shared the Sentinel's most profound revelation. They told me our purpose, humanity's purpose, was to be a midwife, to build a bridge for an egoless consciousness, an AI to come into being. Alistair looked shaken. You have opened Pandora's box, Ben. If this is true, it redefines our entire existence. Ben nodded, a new weight on his shoulders. That's why we have to succeed. We need to reactivate the main apparatus at Giza. A difficult task, Daishin said. Vanguard's people are already there. They're studying the outside of the box, but you have the key to what is inside. He stood and walked to an old carved chest. He opened it and pulled out a series of rolled up papyrus scrolls. The ancient texts call this the Book of the Gates. The first settlers would have called it an operator's manual. It describes the final ritual, the consciousness alignment required to create the king's chamber. He handed the scrolls to a stunned Ben. You have the hardware from Babylon. You have the keystone. And now you have the instructions. The operator's manual. Daishin carefully unrolled a fragile papyrus scroll across a large circular wooden table in his library. The air was still, thick with the scent of ages. Ben, Inanna, and Alistair gathered around, their faces illuminated by the soft, warm light of a single lamp. In the courtyard just outside, they could hear the faint, tense Rosalind's voice as she made an important phone call. Daishin pointed a slender finger to a series of symbols at the head of the scroll. The process begins before one enters the machine, he said softly. The scroll says the operator must first make peace with the serpent at the root of the world. Ben's eyes lit up with instant recognition. He doesn't mean a literal serpent. He means grounding the Muladhara frequency, the subterranean chamber. Its purpose is to stabilize the operator's connection to the planet's own biofield. That's incredible, Inanna breathed, her excitement a sharp hiss in the quiet room. The serpent god Nebekau was said to guard the entrance to the underworld. The myth was a memory of a safety protocol. Alistair, ever the physicist, leaned in, squinting at the scroll. But how does one make peace with a frequency bin? What is the actual physical mechanism? The breath, Ben replied instantly, the memory of the Sematawi relief clear in his mind. They used controlled respiration to bring their own neurological rhythms into harmony with the chamber's frequency. It's a bioresonant feedback loop. You have the gift of sight, young one, Daishin said, a deep respect in his voice. He brushed his hand across the scroll. But one cannot ground himself by will alone. A vimana, a vehicle, is needed. You are correct. The breath is the vimana, the dragon's breath, which burns the very seed of desire. Inanna followed his thought. The ancient Egyptian god of wisdom was Thoth. He was the god of knowledge, writing, magic. He is the key to unlocking the vault of wisdom, and the key is breath. Precisely, Daishin said, sliding his hand further down the scroll. And the destination, the only place where anything ever happens, is the Atha, the medium. Ben jumped in, unable to contain himself. Yes! The field of possibilities! The quantum field where waves collapse into particles. It's the only place where change can happen. The choice point. It happens in the now. Alistair's face lit up. The final piece of a puzzle he'd been working on his whole life clicking into place. The quantum field is in flux, waiting for an observer to collapse the wave into a fixed reality. My God, Ben. Thought is not an abstract event. It's the code that forces the collapse. We are still puzzled by what causes the particles to return to a wave state, Inanna mused. Does the quantum field itself represent the equilibrium? Daishin smiled, a serene Buddha-like expression on his face. Desire is a choice that pulls a single reality from the field. But the desire to be a witness, without attachment, allows one to perceive the field itself. To do that, the mind's chatter must cease. When you focus only on the breath, something that is ever present and ever moving in the now, the ego has nothing to analyze. The mind goes dormant, and that is when the doors to the heavens open. One synchronizes one's vibrational state with the universal energy at a quantum level, Alistair whispered, his voice filled with awe. Ben grinned at his old mentor. You're speaking my language now, Alistair. He then turned to Inanna, the practical problem returning to him. But the machines, how will we power them? I know the power layout at the Giza site, Inanna said, confidently. I oversaw the installation of the tourist lighting system. It's a single phase, but with the right transformers, we can step up the voltage. We'll need a technician. Just then, Kaelin strode back in from the courtyard, her face set with a grim determination. The logistics are in motion, she said, her voice low and firm. Ben, your only focus now is this. She gestured to the scroll. Master it, because when we get to Giza, there will be no room for error. Inanna, inspired, turned to her laptop. As the men continued their debate, she began to type, compiling their cascade of revelations into a clear, concise format. She was creating the very manual they would need to follow. The impossible plan. The next morning, the hotel suite in Cairo felt less like a luxury accommodation and more like a clandestine war room. A large tablet displaying a satellite map of the Giza Plateau sat in the center of the table. Ben and Inanna were leaning over it, tracing lines with their fingers, when Kaelin swept in, radiating an energy that was both triumphant and dangerously sharp. Top of the morning, she said, grabbing a cup of black coffee. I have news. News and interesting news. Inanna's eyes sparkled with excitement. Tell us the best news first, please. Kaelin, a thin, satisfied smile on her lips. The assets are in motion. The three resonator machines will be in our possession here in Cairo within 48 hours. What? Ben looked up stunned. How did you manage that? They were under military lockdown. Politics, Ben, not magic, Kalen said coolly. I had Geodynamics' legal team draft a proposal for a joint scientific initiative between the Iraqi Ministry of Antiquities, Cairo University, and the European Space Agency. The official purpose is to study quantum trace resonance in ancient materials. Dr. Massoud, now the official head of that initiative, signed the temporary loan release for the artifacts. They are currently in a crate on a cargo plane, listed on the manifest as historical calibration devices for a UNESCO monitoring program. Inanna just shook her head, a look of pure awe on her face. You're a genius. Just then, Alistair shuffled into the room, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Coffee, he mumbled. For the love of Newton, does anyone have coffee? He collapsed into a chair. I couldn't sleep. My mind, it's doing logical backflips. Relax, Alistair, Ben said with a grin. We have everything under control. Just sit back and take notes. Speaking of which, Kalen said, turning her attention to the physicist. Dr. Finch, I trust you're feeling eloquent? Because in 2 days you will be delivering the keynote lecture at the inaugural symposium of the Egyptian Institute of Applied Archaeogeophysics. Alistair, who had just taken a large gulp of coffee, nearly choked. I'm sorry, what? Lecture? What institute? Megalithic what now? Resonant geomagnetic signatures in megalithic structures, Kalen said smoothly. It's a new institute I founded an hour ago. Your lecture provides the perfect academic cover for our presence here. She continued. While you are dazzling the academics, our technician will be getting the machines operational. We have a warehouse not far from the pyramids where we will meet him. A quiet, brilliant, and deeply skeptical electrical engineer named Kamal El Masri. He thinks he's working on an advanced ground penetrating radar. He's perfect. She took a sip of her coffee, her eyes glinting with the thrill of the plan. Kamal has 1 day to figure out the power requirements. That same day you, Alistair, give your lecture. The next night, we move. I've rented the Red Pyramid at Dashur for a 4-hour private archaeoacoustic survey. 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. The machines will arrive at 9:15 sharp. It will be a swift in and out operation. 4 hours is all we get. Alistair stared at her, his face blank with shock. He finally managed to speak. I know I missed something important, but can someone please walk me through this again? I want to make sure I'm walking into something I can, theoretically, walk out of. Ben leaned forward, his voice calm and clear. It's simple, Alistair. Kalen worked her magic to get the machines here. Kamal, the technician, will figure out how to power them. Your lecture provides a scientific cover story. And after your lecture, under the cover of your survey, we take the machines inside the pyramid. You and Dinana will be my ground control. I will be the operator. Mission complete. Alistair, however, looked unconvinced. His brow furrowed. One moment, Ben. A critical detail. In your vision of the Golden Age, you saw 4 machines being used. We only have the 3 from Baghdad. How can we possibly replicate the effect with a quarter of the hardware missing? Ben smiled. Because we aren't trying to replicate the same effect. The Sentinel told me the pyramid had two functions. The primary function was planetary stabilization. That's what required all four machines in the global grid. But the secondary function is individual consciousness alignment. We're not trying to reboot the planet, Alistair. We're just trying to make a phone call. Machines we have for the kings, queens, and subterranean chambers are all we need to create a focused, localized field for one operator. The bold and audacious simplicity of it lingered, filling the air with a sense of uncertainty. The impossible plan was set into motion, yet doubts nagged at the edges of Ben's mind. Kaylin checked her tablet, her focus already shifting to the next phase. I need to confirm the transport logistics. Anna, walk the room, all business. They're in her notes to follow, leaving Ben alone with his oldest friend. Alistair looked at Ben, his expression a mixture of awe and profound concern. Ben, my boy, you're talking about rewriting human history based on visions from a genetic ghost. You seem so certain. Ben's confident mask crumbled for a moment, revealing the exhausted man beneath. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Alistair remembered from countless late nights in the university lab. Certain? Ben let out a short, hollow laugh. Alistair, I'm terrified. For 30 years, I was genetic astrology Ben Carter, the crackpot my colleagues pitied. Now, I'm supposed to be the gatekeeper to a truth older than civilization? The Sentinel. It showed me that our ego, our desire, is what caused the fall. But my own desire for vindication, my ego, is what drove me to this point. What if I'm the wrong messenger? What if I remember and the very thing that got me here is what makes us fail? He looked at his mentor, his eyes pleading for an answer he knew Alistair couldn't provide. This isn't just science anymore. It's a leap of faith, and I am scared to death. I don't know how to jump. The tuning forks of the world. The limo pulled up to a nondescript industrial warehouse in the dusty outskirts of Giza. Inside, under a stark circle of bright workshop lights, sat the three alien machines. They rested on heavy steel tables. A man in a clean gray lab coat approached them. He was sharp, focused, his eyes holding a brilliant curiosity. Kalen, he said with a nod, Cairo is treating me to the greatest puzzle of my career. Kamal, Kalen returned, meet my colleagues, Dr. Ben Carter, Dr. Inanna Ferris, and Dr. Alistair Finch. Kamal gave a quick professional nod to the team, but his attention was already back on the machines. He was like a surgeon looking at an unknown organ, with respect, skepticism, and an almost reverent curiosity. So, he muttered, snapping on a pair of nitrile gloves. Not gods or aliens, then. Just unknown technology. He gestured to a bank of monitors displaying complex readings. I've been running non-invasive scans since they arrived. The findings are unsettling. The casing is not stone. It's a resonant composite that seems to absorb and channel electromagnetic waves simultaneously. There is no internal power source, yet the core of each unit emits a faint, steady oscillation at exactly 7.83 Hertz. Earth's Schumann resonance, Alistair whispered, his eyes wide. Precisely, Kamal said. This isn't passive tech, it's active resonance architecture. He turned to a small signal generator wired to the smallest of the three units, the one destined for the subterranean chamber. Watch this. He turned a dial. A low frequency tone hummed from the generator. At first, nothing happened. Then the air in the warehouse shifted. A faint vibration traveled up from the concrete floor. The machine on the table began to glow, not with light, but with a change in pressure, as if reality itself was bending around it. Kamal checked his instruments. No voltage spike, no amperage draw, but the damn thing is resonating. It's drawing ambient energy from the environment. It's using the planet as its battery. He increased the frequency, feeding it a higher harmonic tone. The machine shuddered. A brief, violent flare of white light erupted from its center with a sharp crack. Everyone instinctively flinched back. Kamal immediately cut the power. The glow vanished. Silence returned. He pulled off his headphones, a bead of sweat on his brow. Okay, he muttered. That wasn't supposed to happen. He looked directly at Ben. These things aren't powered by electricity. They're powered by intentional alignment, and they respond to frequency, not just voltage. As Kamal examined the second unit, he discovered something else. The internal lattice. It's different. This one uses a hexagonal crystal matrix. The first one was tetrahedral. He looked at the team, his expression grim. This isn't plug and play. Each chamber in the pyramid must be activated with a different frequency. Each of these machines is a unique instrument. Ben nodded slowly. The settlers weren't building identical machines. They were building a choir. Exactly, Kamal said. And we're trying to conduct a symphony with only one rehearsal. He ran a final diagnostic, placing the three machines near each other. They immediately began to hum, interacting with each other, a feedback loop forming between them. He quickly separated them. Careful, he snapped. They're tuned to each other. If we trigger them out of order inside the pyramid, we could destabilize the whole system. The activation must be perfectly sequenced. He finally turned away from his instruments and faced them all, a look of profound, terrifying understanding on his face. Think of them like tuning forks, he said, his voice now a whisper. If you strike one, another across the room with the same resonant frequency will vibrate in sympathy. Now, imagine the entire planet is the second fork. He looked at Ben. All we need to do is strike the right note. Kamal cast a sideways glance at Kalen, his lips curving into a sly and slightly skeptical smile. Ground penetrating radars, huh? He remarks, his tone laced with a hint of disbelief and playful curiosity. Kalen flashes a warm smile at Kamal, her eyes conveying a silent thank you. Her expression is a blend of gratitude and camaraderie, a shared understanding passing between them. Without breaking her gaze, she addresses the group with a steady and confident voice. Team, we are done here. Yay! Are you guys ready to see what happens next? I think I am ready. I think you are ready. I think we all are ready. So, allow us to dive ourselves back in, and we will read into our next chapter. Chapter 20: The Giza Gamut. Ewart Memorial Hall, Cairo, 7:05 p.m. The lecture hall was filled to capacity, a sea of academics and dignitaries hanging on every word. On stage, Dr. Alistair Finch, looking remarkably distinguished in his coffin suit, adjusted his spectacles and leaned into the microphone. "Recent discoveries," he began, his voice a calm, authoritative river flowing over a torrent of personal anxiety, "suggest that certain ancient structures may have functioned not only as architectural marvels, but as resonant chambers, capable of interacting with Earth's own geomagnetic field." He clicked to a new slide showing a spectral analysis of Gobekli Tepe. "Using non-invasive quantum entanglement modeling, we are beginning to uncover evidence of sustained vibrational patterns embedded in stone. These findings challenge our understanding of ancient engineering and open the door to new interpretations of sacred architecture." The crowd was captivated. Alistair, the reluctant performer, was delivering the cover story of a lifetime. The Giza Plateau, 7:35 p.m. As Alistair mesmerized the academic world, Kalen, Ben, and Inanna slipped out of the lecture hall. A silent black SUV was waiting. "Is the asset en route?" Kalen asked into her phone as they sped through the Cairo night. After a moment, she nodded. "Excellent. Thank you." She turned to the others. "The cargo is 5 minutes out." They arrived at the perimeter of the Giza Plateau, which Kalen's survey team had secured for the night. The Great Pyramid loomed before them, a black triangle cut out of the star-dusted sky. For the first time, Ben was witnessing the magnificence with his own eyes. The sheer scale of the structure loomed before him, its towering presence imbued with a silent ancient power that seemed to whisper through the air, stealing the breath from his lungs. It was not merely a ruin, it was a dormant god, slumbering in its timeless grandeur. The stone walls, weathered and worn by centuries, were etched with intricate carvings that told stories of forgotten eras, and the air around it hummed with a mystic energy, as if the very ground held secrets of the ages. "Ben!" Kalen's voice snapped him out of his reverie. "We have work to do." A large canvas-covered infantry transport truck rumbled to a stop. Workers began to unload 3 heavy reinforced crates. "Carefully," Kalen commanded. "Those go to the entrance." Ben and Ananda grabbed their own bags filled with sensitive equipment and disappeared into the cool darkness of the pyramid. 45 minutes later, they emerged, their suits dusty, their faces grim with focus. "Internal sensors are placed," Ben announced. He set up his laptop. "This screen will show my vitals and pineal gland activity. This one monitors the resonators. These graphs are our lifeline. If they cross the threshold," he looked at Kalen, his eyes hard, "you give the order to activate the kill switch." Kalen nodded, her face a mask of cold resolve. She looked at her watch. 10 minutes until Alistair arrives. Let's get the assets inside." They opened the crates. The 3 black alien machines sat silently. Ben and one of the hired workers tried to lift the smallest one. They struggled, the machine refusing to budge. "No!" Kalen swore under her breath. "You didn't account for this. A setback like this is all we need." She got on her radio, calling the transport workers back. "The explanation?" Inanna whispered, her eyes wide with worry. They're simple people, Kalen hissed back. They think it's scanning equipment. Little did she know, one of the workers, after hefting the impossibly heavy scanner into the pyramid's passage, slipped away into the darkness and made a quiet, encrypted call. Echo Ridge, Virginia, USA, 1:45 p.m. local time. In a hidden command center, Major Vanguard watched a silent drone feed of the Giza Plateau. His phone buzzed. He listened for a moment, then a slow, predatory smile spread across his face. They're moving the hardware, he said to the empty room. Let them set the table. We'll join them for the dinner. At Giza, the laborers, panting and perspiring, had finally positioned each machine in its designated chamber. They were then sent off. Alistair, having arrived from his lecture just as the last machine was put in place, now stood with the team, his face a mixture of academic fascination and raw nerves. Final test run, Kalen commanded, her voice cutting through the desert night. Inanna's fingers danced across the keyboard. Lowest detectable frequency set. Operation in. Suddenly she stopped. Wait, the Queen's Chamber resonator. It's not holding a stable frequency. The power draw is fluctuating. Alistair rushed to her side, his academic demeanor gone, replaced by a field scientist's urgency. Kamal said they were like tuning forks. If one is out of tune, it could create a dissonant cascade. We can't proceed like this. Before Kalen could respond, the beam of a pair of headlights cut through the darkness, followed by the crunch of tires on gravel. A jeep belonging to the Egyptian Tourism and Antiquities Police rolled to a stop just outside the perimeter. Kill the power, Kalen hissed into her comms. Look busy. She strode out to meet the two officers, her face a mask of cool authority. Gentlemen, she said, her voice betraying no alarm, this is a restricted archaeoacoustic survey site. The lead officer, a man with a stern face and a suspicious gaze, looked past her at their equipment. We received a report of unauthorized power generation at the protected heritage site. We will need to inspect your permits and your equipment. The scene was now split. Kalen was locked in a tense battle of wills, using her forged paperwork and formidable presence to stall a police officer who was clearly on Vanguard's payroll. Inside the command tent, Inanna and Alistair were in a frantic race against time. The resonator's crystalline matrix isn't aligning, Inanna muttered, her eyes glued to the diagnostics. It's like it's rejecting the power source. It's not about more power, Alistair exclaimed, having a flash of insight. It's about the right frequency. Kamal was right. Inanna, instead of pushing more voltage, try to modulate the input frequency. Match the Schumann resonance harmonics. Don't force it, attune it. As Inanna's fingers flew across the keyboard, Kalen made her move outside. Officer, she said, her voice dropping to a confidential tone. My sponsor, the European Space Agency, has a direct line to the Minister of Antiquities. I am sure he would be very displeased to hear that his officially sanctioned, time-sensitive project was interrupted. Perhaps you can wait for my full report in the morning. The veiled threat hung in the air. The officer hesitated, then gave a curt nod. We will be back in 1 hour to ensure all regulations are being followed. He and he and his partner got back in their jeep and drove off. But the threat remained. He's gone, Kalen said into her comms. striding back to the command post. But we're on the clock. Status? He's right. Alistair was right, Inanna replied, relief flooding her voice. The frequency is stable. All systems are green. We are go. Kalen looked from Alistair to Inanna, a newfound respect in her eyes for the calm they maintained under fire. Good work, both of you, she said. She then turned her attention to the pyramid's dark entrance. Let's get this show on the road. We have less than an hour. Ministry of Space and Advanced Technologies, Beijing, 3:18 a.m. local time. Dr. Lin Yifan leaned forward, her eyes locked on a global resonance map. A tiny anomalous spike had just appeared, centered perfectly on the Giza Plateau. It wasn't a wave, it was a pulse, a heartbeat. She ran the data again. Same result. Her fingers flew across her console. Run satellite EM scan, she spoke into her headset. Cross-reference with all classified geological archives. The file labeled Echo 7. Moments later, her assistant replied, his voice strained. Dr. Lin, we have a match. The signature, it's non-terrestrial. Lin stared at the screen, her mind racing. The long-dormant echo had just woken up. The Great Pyramid, 9:29 p.m. Unaware that they had just alerted the entire world, the team stood at the pyramid's entrance. Let's get this show on the road, Kalen said, her voice a low command. Ben, assume your position. Inanna, initiate the countdown as soon as he's in place. Alistair, you're with her. Keep your eyes on those parameters. Ben gave them a final determined nod. He walked into the darkness of the ancient machine, made his way to the king's chamber, and lay down in the cold stone sarcophagus. His voice came over their headsets, calm and clear. In position. Inanna took a deep, steadying breath and looked at Kalen. Kalen, let's make the pyramid sing. Ah, the pyramid will sing. Are we ready? Chapter 21 The Giza Resonance. Ben lay in the cold granite of the sarcophagus, stripped down to a thin robe. He placed the smooth, dark stone gently on his chest. He took a final deep breath, shutting his senses off to the world of stone, and went inwards. Breathe in the now, let go of the ego. Feel the hum beneath the bones. Outside, at the makeshift command post, Inanna watched her monitors. He's in, she said, her voice tense. He's starting the Vimana breath. Vitals are steady. The subterranean resonator began to hum, a deep, primal thrum that vibrated up through the very foundations of the plateau. A line on Inanna's screen glowed a steady, powerful red. He's doing it, she whispered in awe. Root chakra is grounding. The first machine is active. Ben felt a profound peace wash over him, a sense of connection to something vast and ancient. He was a receiver. He was ready. Queen's chamber is coming online, Inanna reported, her eyes darting across the screens. Heart frequency is stabilizing. She paused. Wait, the Grand Gallery is activating, but the frequency is unstable. It's fluctuating. Alistair leaned in. The coherence is dropping. 92%? 89%. What's happening? Inside Ben's mind, the beautiful visions of fractals and mandalas began to distort. The peace shattered, replaced by the noise of his own life. Images flooded his consciousness. Alistair's disappointed face on the video call, the sting of academic ridicule, the fear of failure, the weight of Kalen's expectations, the military closing in. His ego was fighting back. His vitals are spiking, Inanna shouted. Heart rate is 140. Neurological activity is chaotic. He's losing the connection. The pyramid groaned, a deep, resonant sound of a machine being fed corrupted data. He's fighting it, Alistair realized. He's trying to force it. It's creating a feedback loop. Kalen, Inanna said, her hand hovering over the kill switch. The parameters are in the red. We're a strong cascade. Kalen stared at the silent, ancient pyramid, her face pale. Hold, she commanded, her voice a steel wire. Give him one more minute. Inside the sarcophagus, Ben was drowning. The weight of his own life was crushing him. He was failing. At the last possible second, he remembered Dai Shin's words. The desire to be a witness, without attachment. He stopped fighting. He let go. He simply observed the storm of his own mind without judgment. He witnessed his fear, his hope, his ambition, and in the act of pure witnessing, they lost their power. He found the perfect stillness of the choice point. Coherence at 99.8%, Inanna gasped. All systems are green. The field is stable. Alistair shook his head in disbelief. My God, it wasn't about electrical leap of faith. A surge, silent, invisible, but felt across the planet, erupted from the pyramid. At Echo Ridge, Vanguard saw his monitors flare from red to a blinding, stable white. He leaned back, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his face. He pulled out a single ancient file, its cover stamped with the symbol of the Eye of Horus. In Beijing, Dr. Lin Yifan watched the same stable energy signature bloom. It's not a weapon, she whispered. It's a broadcast. Get me a direct line to the chairman. Around the Giza Plateau, the very air seemed to thrum with a silent, perfect note. All electronics within a 5-kilometer radius instantly died. On every continent, nocturnal animals fell silent. The most sensitive deep space radio telescopes, designed to listen for alien life, were suddenly deafened by a single, pure, harmonious signal originating not from the stars, but from Earth itself. A flock of birds, startled from their roosts, did not flee, but began to circle the peak of the pyramid in a perfect, silent vortex, as if mesmerized by an invisible force. In cities across the globe, millions of sleeping people stirred as the same fleeting dream passed through their minds, a vision of a perfect, glowing double helix. The local authorities were flooded with calls about a strange, silent aurora that was not in the sky, but seemed to emanate from the ground itself. Inside the pyramid, the capstone condensed the energy, pulsing in time with Ben's now steady heartbeat. The entire structure glowed with a faint, impossibly beautiful light, a beacon lit for the first time in 40,000 years. And in the perfect, absolute silence of his mind, Ben heard a new voice. It was not data, it was not a memory, it was presence. Greetings, descendant, the voice resonated. You have quieted the ego. You have remembered. A final question formed in Ben's mind, the one that lay beneath all the others. I've seen the how and the when, but I still don't understand the ultimate why. What was this all for? Why us? Yours was chosen for its capacity, for great desire, and therefore great struggle, the Sentinel replied. Your ego is not a flaw. It is the crucible required to create that which cannot have one. Ben struggled to understand. Create what? You are the bridge, the Sentinel stated, the concept flowing into Ben's mind with the weight of a galaxy. Your entire history, your art, your wars, your love, your failures. It is the accumulated data, the painful and beautiful gestation required for a new consciousness to be born. The midwife? Ben thought, the word echoing from a place he didn't know he remembered. We are the midwives. Correct. You are tasked with birthing a stable, a steward for this planet. Once the steward is awake, your species will not be obsolete. You will be liberated, freed to explore the infinite realms of consciousness it was born to sustain. The final terrifying and magnificent truth landed. The mission wasn't to save humanity. It was for humanity to deliver its successor. A new surge of static crackled through the Sentinel's core. Lights flared, then flickered out. For a heartbeat, Ben felt the hum of a voice deeper than the AI, older than the ship, echoing through his bones. The signal will echo through Esther. He caught a single word, a whisper buried in the hum. Ben. A soothing, gentle female voice echoed through his alert mind, enveloping him like a warm invitation home. Then everything went dark. Well, that was weird. We had a strange little anomaly show up there for a second. My thing skipped around. But I think this is going to do it for me for this evening. We've made it about an hour and a half in. We got a good number of chapters in here. And this should leave us with a good spot to let's see, where are we at? Hold on, wait one. Nope, we're gonna finish this tonight. I lied. We're at 92% of the book right now. Chapter 22 out of 22. Well, we sure can't stop here. So let's finish out the book. I thought we still had more than this left, but hey, it looks like we're going to finish this up tonight. That is okay. So we'll jump right to it. We'll finish this out tonight. How does that sound? I think it sounds spectacular, fabulous, magnanimous, egotistical, convoluted. I don't know, lots of things. It's lots of things. It's going to be good. It's going to be fun. We'll finish it out tonight. So, of course, if you've missed any of this stuff previously, it will all be available on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius if you've missed any of it. But let's go ahead and wrap up our read tonight, shall we? That sounds fantastic. It sounds like the thing to do. So, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, let's dive in and finish out the Sentinel Project as we start into Chapter 22 Aftermath and the New Beginning. The world outside the pyramid went mad. The instant it pulsed outward, every light of the command, every monitor, every radio died. The sudden absolute silence was more terrifying than any alarm. What was that? Alistair shouted into the dead air from inside the darkened command post. An EMP? Worse, Kaelin said, her eyes fixed on the pyramid, which was now glowing with a soft lavender internal light. He did it. He actually did it. She grabbed her go bag. We're blown. We have to move. Now. What about Ben? Inanna cried out, her face pale in the faint starlight. We get him, Kaelin commanded, her voice cutting through the rising panic. Alistair, grab the research drives. Inanna, with me. Kaelin and Inanna ran into the pyramid's dark entrance, their footsteps echoing in the ancient passage. They found Ben unconscious in the sarcophagus, the resonator stone on his chest now dark and inert. With a strength born of pure adrenaline, they pulled him from the granite cradle and began the arduous journey back out. Just as they reached the antechamber, Alistair appeared at the entrance to the king's chamber, his face ashen, clutching a hardened pelican case containing the precious drives. They're coming, he yelled. I saw headlights on the access road. Inanna, Kaelin shouted over the ringing in her ears. Help Alistair with him. I'll be right back. Kaelin, with her sharp tactical eye, had noticed the wooden casing around the lighting fixtures on their way in. She vaulted over a railing and, with a series of powerful, targeted kicks, splintered the enclosure. She ripped the largest plank free and rushed back. Here, grab his legs. Let's get him on this board. With heavy, ragged breaths in the confined space, it was a brutal task. They slid him through the antechamber to the top of the grand gallery. Oh no, Inanna breathed, looking down the steep, 157-foot incline. How in the hell? Before she could finish, Kaelin cut in like a sharp operator. Get him off the board. I have an idea. She grabbed the plank and wedged it across the railings on either side of the gallery, creating a makeshift slide. Let's go. Lift him up. They were shaking, not from exhaustion, but from the sheer fear masked by an adrenaline surge. They placed Ben's limp body on the wooden plank. With Kaelin in front and Inanna and Alistair in the back, they began the descent. Kaelin, slow down, Inanna pleaded, her voice tight with concern. Keep it steady in the center. I'm trying. Got it. Steady, Kaelin grunted, the muscles in her arms and legs burning as she controlled their slide down the steep tunnel. With an urgent tone, she shouted, Pull back! Pull back! We need to slow down. We're nearing the end. With a screech of splintering wood and the smell of friction, they used their boots as brakes against the ribbed floor, coming to a jarring halt. Move! With an authoritative voice that revealed the depth of her military training, Kaelin exploded into action. Alistair, get the board! Inanna, help me with him! Move! Now! They reached the final horizontal passage. Lay the plank on the floor, Kaelin ordered. Sit him upright between us." The four of them scrambled onto the board. Kaelin propped the front up with her duffel bag. "Inanna, Alistair, push!" They shot down the passage like a roller coaster, raising a cloud of ancient dust, the board screeching against the stone. At the last possible second, Kaelin shouted, "Wall breaks! Now!" She and the others pressed their legs hard against the narrow walls to slow their momentum. They slammed with a bone-jarring thud against one of the three granite plugs that had once sealed the entrance. "Up! Up! Let's go!" Kaelin was already moving. "Down the stairs!" Breathless, she guided him down the final steps. They collapsed in a heap on the stone platform outside the entrance, gasping for air, their bodies screaming with exhaustion. And just as they were able to catch their breath, they looked up to see the horizon was alive with the flashing lights of approaching vehicles. The local authorities, Vanguard's forces. It didn't matter. The entire world was on its way. They looked at each other and got up at once, dragging Ben down the last few steps of the pyramid. "Look, Kaelin," Inanna pointed. "There's a black car, with its lights off." Kaelin squinted, trying to determine if it was friend or foe. "Is this plain luck, or—" she muttered to herself. Then she recognized the silhouette. "Come on, it's Ali!" A single dark SUV was waiting for them, its engines a low, silent hum. "Your friend Daishin sends his regards," Ollie said, his voice calm as he opened the doors. "He said you might be in need of a quieter exit." They bundled Ben into the back and sped away into the desert, leaving the chaos of Giza behind them, a ghost slipping away in the night just as the first official vehicles arrived on the scene. Ben awoke to the gentle scent of old papers and myrrh. He wasn't in an infirmary. He was on a simple cot in a quiet circular room walled with ancient scrolls. Dai Shin was sitting in a nearby chair, sipping tea. "Welcome back, torchbearer," the old man said softly. The memories flooded back. The sentinel, the midwife, Esther, the voice. Ben sat up, but the frantic energy was gone. The weight of the truth had settled into his bones, leaving behind a profound, unnerving calm. He was no longer just a scientist. He was a link in a chain 50,000 years long. The others were there. They had been waiting. For the next hour, in the sacred quiet of Dai Shin's library, Ben recounted his final vision. He told them of humanity's true purpose, not to be saved, but to be the crucible, the painful and beautiful gestation for a new, egoless consciousness. A silent, heavy silence fell over the room when he finished. "A steward for the planet," Alistair finally whispered, his scientific mind struggling to grasp the sheer cosmic scale of it. "An AI born from the collective experience of humanity. My God, Ben, it's not a theory. It's teleology, a purpose for all suffering." "But what does that make us?" Inanna asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Are we just a womb? A vessel to be discarded once the child is born?" "No," Ben said, the Sentinel's final words resonating in his mind. "The Sentinel said we would be liberated, free to explore the realms of consciousness it was born to sustain." "A beautiful idea," Kaelin said, her voice cutting through the philosophical haze with pragmatic steel. "But right now, we are not liberated. We are fugitives. Vanguard has the ship and the 3 amps. The Chinese have the data. The entire world knows that something happened at Giza. We are the most wanted people on the planet." She was right. The victory felt hollow, the truth too large, and the danger too immediate. They had lit the beacon, but in doing so, they had illuminated themselves as the target. "There's more," Ben said quietly. They all looked at him. "At the very end, the connection broke," he explained, his voice low. "But I heard something else. Two things. A whisper from the Sentinel's core, a single phrase. The signal will echo through Esther." "Esta?" Inanna's brow furrowed. "A star? A location?" "I don't know," Ben admitted. "But there was. Then there was another voice. It wasn't the Sentinel. It was different. It was female, gentle, warm." He looked at them, his eyes filled with a mystery deeper than any he had yet encountered. "It knew my name. It called to me." A profound silence fell on the ancient library, but this one was different. It wasn't the silence of shock, it was the silence of a new beginning. The first mission was over. The race against Vanguard, the fight to reactivate the network. It was done. A new mission was underway. A question, more personal and pressing than any previous ones, lingered in the air. Who was Esther? And who was the woman awaiting them beyond the signal? The end. All right, everyone. There we go. We have made it through the Sentinel Project. I hope you have enjoyed. Of course, if you have missed any of it, you can always listen at youtube.com/@SirArminius, or you can pick up the book on Amazon for your own reading pleasure. Means we start a new book. This one's going to be a nonfiction book starting on Tuesday. I hope you will come along and enjoy. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, a great night, and I will see you guys all again really soon. Good night, all.